You come to the Bulletin Board Sports Podcast, what you're going to get is some in-depth Texans coverage. And I know Turtle has been waiting all year to bring us a playoff breakdown. It's Chargers, the Los Angeles Charbaws, going to Houston to play the Texans, NRG Stadium. Turtle, right off the bat, what are your impressions on this game?
Yeah, well, I would start off by saying it's shocking, but the national media seems to is having their way clowning the Texans this week. You saw Rex Ryan say that the Chargers got an auto buy. Plenty of other folks in the media seem to not even be giving the Texans a chance in this game. And those that have been tuning into the whole pod all year has heard my transgressions about the team and how they haven't lived up to expectations, mainly because of the offensive line play and play calling issues, and certainly some questions about CJ Stroud and his health, and just the health of the overall team in general, to be frank. But let me be clear. I don't think the Texans should be +3 underdogs at home in this game. And I love what the Charbaws have done this year. But the fact that you're saying, the market's saying that that the LA Chargers are, let's call it 4.5, 5 points better on a neutral field versus the even this version of the Texans, feels a bit asinine to me. Now, granted, the Chargers, they've got a very good defense, number one scoring defense in the NFL. You can make the case that their schedule of offenses played has been a little bit underwhelming, but nevertheless, they've lived up to expectations and usually perform really well against bad offenses. And right now, the Texans have a very, very, I would say, bad offense. The back half of the year, with injuries combined with bad play calling, run and pass block, pass pro, all bad. So you're talking about a strength and a weakness from that perspective. You do have to wonder if maybe these news clipping type deals can get the Texans up for, not they wouldn't be max motivated anyways, but they definitely have some bulletin board material to pull from. But on paper, I would say the Chargers defense has an advantage until it remains to be seen. Those two guys on the edge, Mack and Bosa, could have a very, very strong day, especially if they're running inside stunts and getting those two guys aligned on the interior of the offensive line of the Texans. Now, I'm happy the starters for the Texans played on Sunday. They didn't get a whole lot of tick, but when they were out there, they scored. And when the backups were in, shout out Dameon Pierce. Good to see him off the milk carton and contributing. They looked good. But again, this is against the Tennessee Titans, a much different animal this week coming into NRG on Saturday in what I like to call the annual Texans Invitational, the Saturday afternoon wildcard time slot. As far as the Chargers offense or the Texans defense goes, this is probably the more intriguing matchup of the game, and I'm super excited to watch this chess match. Greg Roman versus D'Amico Ryans, with a little bit of input from Jim Harbaugh sprinkled in there. Texans rested a lot of key guys on defense last week, as you can imagine. No Will Anderson, no Danielle Hunter, no Kamar Lassiter, no Stingley. I know Lassiter's still banged up. I think he's going to give it a go this weekend, but there was some rumblings about the team being concerned about how he was doing health-wise, but I think he's going to give it a go. And they need him out there. Because if Chris Boyd is the one that's going to be, Chris Boyd and Jeff Okudah get extended playing time on Saturday, even the likes of Quentin Johnston, who had a wonderful game last week, 13 catches for 186 yards, even the likes of him could have a good day against Chris Boyd and Jeff Okudah. So hopefully Lassiter is good to go. Hopefully he's healthy. The Texans sorely need him. But it's going to be very interesting. Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. against Joe Alt. So, I mean, that offensive line of the Chargers is solid. The Texans quietly haven't been great against not pass protection, but against the pass over the back half of the year as well. So, and Herbert's playing his best as any time we've seen Herbert play. So very intriguing. I still don't understand the line. I can maybe understand the line being 1.5, floating around to pick 'em. But the Texans getting 3 points seems like a lot for a home playoff game. But we shall
I don't
see. I
know.
mean,
Let me push back for a second on that because I mean you
yeah,
would grant that the Texans' offensive line has been a sieve for the better part of this year. They've just been allowing constant free rushers. Just it's been hell for CJ Stroud
yeah,
back there. We know that this Chargers team is going to be ready along their defensive line. On their front, they're going to be bringing the heat. They're going to be pressuring CJ Stroud because that's been the book on him all season. I trust that Harbaugh and his staff are going to be able to dictate that, at least on the defensive end. They're going to be able to dictate the pace of the game, just in terms of like, we're going to send pressure and we don't think that you're going to be able to hold up, right? So then it
yeah,
comes down to, can they impose their will on the offensive side of the ball? And as you said, Herbert's been playing some of the best football he's played in his career. He's using his legs. He's able to run the ball. They don't have a lot of star power around him on that offense, but they don't necessarily need to when they can, smash the ball down your throat while having Justin Herbert just pick you apart on the offensive side. So I think they're a dangerous team. I don't know if they're an elite team, but what do you think about that specifically when I bring up to you the Houston's pass protection versus what's going to be you got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, but
yeah.
beyond that, the entire
can I
team
ask
has been
real
playing.
quick?
Yeah.
Real quick as well. Who do you think the best five? Like, who's the starting five from left tackle to right tackle?
Yeah, the left tackle will be Laramie Tunsil. I'm guessing they're going to stick with what they've been doing the last couple of weeks. So Titus Howard will be left guard. Jared Patterson will be center. I know that it looked like Juice Scruggs might be back. He might not be. If Juice Scruggs isn't back, then maybe we get a little sprinkling of Kendrick Green or somebody else at guard. I mean, guard might be a little bit of a turnstile. We're gonna have to wait and see some more info. And Blake Fisher at right tackle. That's what I think they'll go with. But we'll see. But yeah, I think the main thing that concerns me, honestly, is Jesse Minter is a great defensive mind. I think he's probably going to be a head coach one day in the NFL. And when it comes to chess matches perspective, if Bobby Slowick can't make adjustments, which he's showed he can't really do it all year, I think Jesse Minter will have his way with him. Now, the one saving grace for the Texans is that they normally don't start out on offense slow. They're actually in the better half of the league when it comes to first half scoring and opening drives and all that sort of stuff. So it seems like Slowick can come up with an initial game plan. The problem is when the bullets start flying and the team across from him makes adjustments is when he gets too stubborn to make adjustments of his own. So if you're watching this game at home and you're looking for live bet opportunities, I like if the teams come out hot and you say it's, let's just say it's 7-7 at the end of the first quarter. A live bet towards the under might not be a bad bet. Because those algorithms in the sports books kind of juice that up. And look, the Texans have shown that they can't score diddly squat in the second half of games. And a lot of that has to do with Slowick not making adjustments. And honestly, that's my biggest concern is the Minter versus Slowick matchup. Very concerning, especially when it comes to blitz pickup and defensive lineman stunting. It certainly seems to be a major edge there for LA. But look, it's hard in the playoffs. I think the Texans are still a very talented football team, and to give away 3 points on the spread to a football team that's really talented like the Texans, I would say even with their injuries, probably more talented than the LA Chargers, and you're giving that team 3 points at home. I don't know. From a macro perspective, it's hard to me to get to lay 3 points with LA just from a non-biased perspective. I do think that if you're going to take anything in this game, it's going to be either live betting or the under because I think the Texans could at some point or a majority of the game struggle on offense. But it remains to be seen. And I will say I'm as a Texans fan, I'm extremely nervous. Just to see what type of product they put out there. But I hope they're reading these news clippings and they got a little bit extra pep in their step. Because for these people to go on here like Rex Ryan and say there's an auto buy, the Texans have no chance, that seems like an overreaction in my opinion.
Turtle, what do you think of
yeah.
Turtle? What do you think about kind of the chess match? That obviously kind of goes on with, Jim Harbaugh, and Greg Roman with the play calling. What they usually do is kind of stack the box, obviously because it's part of the DNA of Harbaugh is to establish the run early on, stack the box to kind of get linebackers to draw in, opening up kind of the middle of the field for either play action, or just trying to hit a wide receiver over the middle of the field, draw the linebackers off and bring them into draw them in and open that up. Are you worried about the big play possibilities that's going to come and kind of the chess match that's going to be going on, kind of play by play with it, especially as they're able to move the ball into the middle of the field? I mean, eliminating the big plays against this team, I think, is where you're going to win or lose this game. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the Chargers lining up and let's say 12 personnel with 2 tight ends and really banging the football in there, that doesn't concern me too much. That we're getting Azeez Al-Shire back from suspension. Christian Harris is back. This is probably the healthiest the linebacking group has been all year.
By the way,
and they've got some talented players there. And the Texans are a pretty good run defense. They've been pretty solid and stout up front all year. And that's kind of where it's going to be interesting to see what the Chargers do because there will be opportunities in the back end if Laster isn't 100% healthy or you got to play Laster. I would almost think that the advantageous strategy that I would like to see the Chargers employ would go more spread look. You get Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, and Ladd McConkey all on the field at the same time. You go 13 personnel, and you either have Laster at man coverage in the slot, which leaves Okudah on the outside, Okudah or Chris Boyd on the outside, and you attack from there. That concerns me. That concerns me more than the play action run game. If they run play action from 13 personnel, that also scares me. Just from putting the stress on the defense perspective, and look, they've got the horses and they've got the staff to probably see that. So I'm going to be really curious to see what type of personnel and what the play calling for the Chargers looks like out of the gate. And I'll be interested in how DeMeco Ryans adjusts his defense as well. Do you play less man coverage? It's not like the Chargers have a world beater wide receiver on their team. They got some solid guys. I like McConkey. I like Josh Palmer. I like Quentin Johnston, but you don't really need Derek Stingley ultra man coverage this week. I think it's probably going to be more of a zone look. And look, I trust the athleticism of Christian Harris and Azeez Al-Shire and Henry To'oTo'o to hopefully get to their deep hooks and push those things deep. But we'll see. The Texans have showed they can get gashed the last 8 weeks or so from the past. So definitely intriguing. I don't know what the status of J.K. Dobbins is. I know he came back into the game last week, but he did bang his knee up again. And outside of him, I mean, you're probably, Gus Edwards is on IR, so you're trotting Kamani Vidal or Hassan Haskins out there. Those guys don't really threaten me out of the backfield, to be honest.
Picked up.
Oh, they signed Zeke. I thought. Oh, okay,
They did sign Zeke. Yeah,
we don't.
And he doesn't
give too much credence to this.
Yeah, I don't think I'm losing sleep.
I was about to ask for Christian's analysis on this game, but if it's going to involve Zeke Elliott in any way, I might have some serious problems.
They can throw the ball to Zeke all they want. I mean, actually, you know what they should do is he might have better hands than Quentin Johnston. So what they should do is line Zeke up at receiver and run streaks.
Ex-receiver.
Well, I had a question for you on because one of the big, bugaboos, I should say, about this Chargers offense has kind of been offensive inconsistency in the second half. They're averaging 10.3 points in the second half this season. I mean, do you think this is, you know, I mean, would it be something where you think there is a pathway to a win by wearing the Chargers down in the first half and kind of, I mean, you're going to have to come out at home and step on throats in frank terms. And there's 6 in EPA allowed per play on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, are the questions just with what CJ Stroud are we going to get, and kind of where is the offensive production going to get?
And
I mean, and Joe Mixon. Let's give the flowers, has been playing amazing this year, and then we saw Damian Pierce still has some juice in him. I mean, does that give you hope?
But before
Yeah,
you answer that,
yeah,
you got to acknowledge at the same time that the Chargers have been winning all season based on just that, based
yeah.
on dictating the game, controlling the ball, and
Yep.
Hence why they haven't scored a lot of second half points is because
The
they
Harbaugh staple.
normally
Yeah.
they've been playing with a lead,
Mhm.
especially against the drudges of the NFL. I mean, every time the Chargers, I mean, credit to them, they never really played down to competition. They bullied teams that were worse than them, and then they don't score a lot of points second half because they didn't really need to against lower competition. So, yeah, it definitely look. The Chargers are a front running team. If the Texans can muster up enough offense early, it definitely puts them in a better spot. The problem is the Texans have been themselves a front running team. We saw it time and time again this year where they would come out and get a lead, or happened against Buffalo, which ended up being probably the best win in the season for them. Happened against Detroit. Should have been a win, but they went ahead and scored 0 points in the second half, which is, again, a theme of the year. So really, what I'm saying is no lead is safe for the Texans, but they do have to maximize their probabilities of winning this game, and that is not letting the Chargers get out hot and score points. Because I do if the Chargers get a 14 point lead at any point in this game, with how banged up the Texans offense is, with how poor their O lines played this season, and there's rumors that Deontay Johnson's going to get extended playing time. He's been with the team for 2 weeks. It's a shell of an offense that any Texans fan expected before the season. So yeah, I mean, you can't let the Chargers get up by a lot, because they will wear you down once they get their points, and they will milk that clock. So
I don't think there's too much cause for concern for you guys. I think there's been kind of at least in this second half of the season. I mean, we've really seen kind of a decline on the defensive side of the ball here for the Chargers. I think if you guys are able, it's going to come down to possession time, and then limiting turnovers when you have possession of the football. But I think it's likely a one and done. I don't see much of a playoff spoiler for this Chargers team. That's just my personal opinion. I think it's been fun, Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey, seeing how he's been able to kind of elevate the young players he's been playing with. But I think just on a talent basis, this is going to be a big Joe Mixon game, and I think that's going to be. I think that'll be the X factor for the Texans. That's my opinion on it. But I mean, what do you think, Turtle? I mean, I think if you guys dominate on the offensive side of the ball, it really won't matter.
yeah, the problem is I see it very unlikely we dominate the offensive side of the ball. The Texans, see, here's the thing. Here's the thing is that the Chargers beat up on lesser competition, and right now the Texans offense is playing like the dredges of the league. They're playing like one of the worst offenses in the NFL, and that is the biggest concern for me. I love the optimism, Mike, coming from you, and it sounds like you're going to take the Texans +3, which I endorse. Again, I think it's a look. The truth is somewhere in the middle for me. Again, the Texans are not a good football team right now. They haven't played up to expectations, But at the end of the day, to be 3-point underdogs at home in a playoff game seems like an overreaction, and you're seeing that a lot right now. That's not me saying that the issues the Texans have had all year are just going to magically disappear next week or this week, I should say. But when you're looking at just a numbers game, just the +3 from a betting angle, that seems like an overreaction based off the talent that the Texans still have. Now, will the Texans execute like they're capable of doing? They haven't really done it all year, so that remains to be seen. But I don't hate the value on the Texans at +3 getting a field goal at home. And look, I like the Chargers. I think the Chargers are an above average football team, but they're beatable, especially if they're traveling. And look, I'm happy we're playing the Chargers and not Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh fans always show out and take over the opposing team's stadium. I don't think LA Chargers fans are overtaking the Texans stadium. So there's going to be a solid home field advantage that I think might be able to push them to another matchup with Kansas City at the Slaughterhouse of Arrowhead. But we'll see.
Well, they had that one lady last year, but outside of her,
That lady's also a Vikings fan. I mean, she's an industry plant.
She's the NFL's poster fan at this point.
Yeah.
Any franchise. Christian, what are your thoughts on this game? For the record, I have the Chargers winning this game. If it were -2.5 Chargers, I'd be hammering it on the road as a team.
But Hook will get you, man.
Yeah. On the road as a team that just hasn't really had dominant wins or hasn't felt like they have to really run up the score on anybody. I have a hard time going for the +3 on that, or going for -3, because I do think it could be a one-score game and it could be decided by a field goal. But yeah, who knows? What do you think, Christian?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I think it's going to be a really good game. PFF likes Houston plus, I think, 2.4, something like that. The big X factor for me is Nico Collins. The one game with the Chargers that I was really kind of out on them with was when they got absolutely blitzed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple weeks back. I think that was week 15. Mike Evans had 9 catches for 159 yards. And really since that game, I felt like their secondary has really struggled. If the Texans are going to have success, I think they need to really push the ball downfield, get it to Nico. And Nico's got to have that Mike Evans type feel on this game. He's got to put his stamp on the game. I think those corners, I'm a big fan of Cam Hart, big fan of Derwin James, obviously, of course, but Christian Fulton has struggled occasionally. We'll see how Tarheeb still plays. So for me, if the Texans are going to have success, it's going to start and end with pushing the ball down the field, and Mixon can even get involved in the passing game as well. But yeah, the one thing about the Chargers is that they really are built inside out. I'm concerned about the defensive interior of the Chargers versus that interior offensive line. I mean, Poona Ford and T.R. Tart have been some of my favorite players all year. I think they're going to get paid a lot of money this offseason. But I do love, and I've been saying it for weeks, I love Titus Howard at left guard, even though he's getting paid like a tackle, it feels right now. But maybe that left side of the offensive line can generate some good push, maybe get involved in the run game early. But ultimately, if Nico Collins can dominate like he's capable of, I think they have a good shot at staying in this game. And then if you stay in the game, you got a good kicker. I know Fairbairn's been struggling the last couple of weeks, at least. Last time I really checked in on him, I think was Christmas.
He's fine. I mean he had like one bad game, but I still trust him for what it's worth.
Yeah, he's a good kicker. So I really think that the Texans at home, I'll give them the nod. I'll take the points, but the Chargers, if they really stick to the game plan, I mean, they could really just exploit the fact that The Texans have been playing a lot of nickel. They haven't had Aziz Al-Shaair for a couple weeks. Christian Harris has been injured. If the Chargers are going to win this game, it's going to be because of a theme we've been talking about all year, and it's because they're built inside out. So we'll see. But
And I think
I'll take the Texans.
I like the Texans too in this one, Christian. The one concern I do have is just I think there's inconsistencies with when the Texans get it in deep. I mean, red zone offense is 27, red zone defense is or red zone offense is 26, red zone defense is 27. I think that might be if you're gonna, I'm gonna take the Texans on this one, but I mean that's just an area of concern. I think going into this game is are you going to be able to finish drives, and especially with a ball control team like the Chargers and a Jim Harbaugh led offense. I think I like the Texans +3 in this just based off of that because I think it's going to be kind of a ground and pound. I like the under in this game as well at 42. I think it's going to be a race to 21 points that puts this game over the edge. I think the defenses are really going to play a major factor in this, and I think both quarterbacks and both offensive lines are going to have trouble kind of with the schemes that are going to be put out there, by both play callers on the defensive side of the ball. I like the under, but I do give I lean Texans in this one.
Yeah, definitely points at a premium. I think in this game, I'm with you there, Mike. I go the under sentiment. I would just rather. I think 42 is a low number, so myself, I'm just gonna wait and hope there's a live bet opportunity. But I think that there's nowhere else. You can't look this game over, in my opinion. And to your point, Christian, if you want to know what the Texans' plan is with Nico Collins, the opening drive against Tennessee, 4 targets, 3 catches, and a touchdown for Nico Collins.
And
so
I like that.
yeah.
I like that.
Nico Collins over maybe. I don't know if the props are out yet on Wednesday, but whatever they say. If it's anywhere in the 80s, I think I'm going over catches and receptions.
Wow.
So